Welcome to the Body Talks podcast with me, Dr. Brook. I'm a chiropractor extraordinaire who speaks the language of the body, not to be confused with body language. Join me on this show as I disrupt current beliefs about where health comes from and how you can discover your greatest health potential without having to spend hours away from your life's work in order to do so. Because reaching these levels of health is possible once you learn how to carry on a dialogue with the greatest creation to ever exist, the human body. By tuning into the whispers your body speaks and addressing them, you avoid the potential damage that is created when the body begins to scream, allowing you to experience healing in a whole new way. This show will guide you towards true health so you can continue to change the world. Your body holds the answers. I'm here to help you discover them on the Body Talks podcast, starting now.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Body Talks podcast with Dr. Brook, your host. I am joined here today with a dear friend and colleague of mine, Dr. Vivek Soham. We've known each other since 2016?
Yeah, it's been coming up on 6 years.
Dang, oh my goodness. So today we're actually going to be talking about how him and I have been working together with patients to help them really up-level their health in a lot of different ways. I want Dr. Soham, or Dr. V, like I like to call him, to talk about his story, though, how he got into chiropractic, because he's got a really interesting route in how we met. We met at school in the Bay Area, Northern California, but he had gone to chiropractic school in Wales before. So how did that come about?
Yes, definitely it was a journey to even get to chiropractic school in the UK.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a chiropractor since I was 9. It started when my mom got in a really bad car accident. She was unable to walk and unable to move essentially. And as a single mom, it was really difficult to have this whole entire support network. So one day she took me to one of her appointments of just like a last ditch effort to try and get some relief. And it happened to be this chiropractor, this local chiropractor, and to see someone take away so much pain from my mother's life with their hands, I was like, that's magic. That's what I want to do.
I love it.
And in that moment, it was like just this stubbornness, this passion. I'm only going to be a chiropractor, and that's all I want to do.
Yeah.
So there was definitely many ups and downs on the way. And I originally actually wanted to go to Life West. I found out from the same chiropractor that I shadowed that he's like, the best place to go is actually in California. There's this school in the Bay Area. I was like, okay. I had my eyes and heart set on that. A few things happened, and I ended up going to school in Wales. So I did 3 years there. I know, I'm laughing.
Just so crazy.
And then I decided to transfer.
Can I pause you right there? For those of you who are listening, chiropractic school in and of itself, once you get into the grad program, is roughly about 4 years, 3.5 to 4 years. So Dr. V did 3 years in another chiropractic school before showing up to the school that we went to in the Bay Area. So continue.
Yeah, so then from there it was like, okay, well, I didn't want to have any what ifs.
Yeah. So
I applied. I didn't tell my mom actually. I just wanted to try and apply and see if I got into Life West, which is where we went to school. And I got in, and I come home for Christmas. I was like, hey Mom, I'm going to California to go to chiropractic school. And this is us still living in the UK at the time. And my mom was very supportive. She turned around and she said, okay, I can't give you any money or anything else, but I'll help you in whatever way I can. And I'm like, and that's just the sort of narrative that it's always been, and my mom's been very supportive in that sense. No matter what it is, like, she wants us to go out there and live life and enjoy. So yeah, I moved to the Bay Area in 2016.
Okay. He moved to the Bay Area in 2016 after having already gone to chiropractic school for 3 years.
Yes.
He started from day one.
Yep.
He didn't get any of those credits moved over to that school. So here he is 3 years in, transfer schools, and starts right at zero.
Yeah, right at
with
zero.
everybody else.
Yeah, I was like, so when I got there, I was told that I was going to actually jump into the second year, essentially would have been like the 8th quarter of the program.
Right.
And it ended up working out that one of the admissions tutors like sort of misfiled a lot of my paperwork and everything else. So I'm sitting here just confused and like, okay, well, I really want to be a chiropractor at this point.
Yeah.
And a lot of good stuff came from that. So like while I was doing classes that I'd already done over and over again,
repeat.
I started trying to build myself. I said, I want to be the best chiropractor.
Yeah.
I moved here for a reason.
Yeah.
I had a really strong science background, so I started wanting to apply that in what ways can I learn to better myself while I don't have to keep studying the same things over again, especially in those first 3 quarters. Right? Like, it's just like the real basic sciences. And I shouldn't belittle the sciences, but it's like, I've already done them for 3 years. They're already ingrained in my head at this point. So, and I think that's when we met. We met in June. It was actually through a mutual friend of ours, Molly.
I was actually messaging in contact, or talking to you before you even had come from the UK. On his phone.
So you remember that? Yeah. I was trying to look for housing and trying to get connected, and who I thought I was talking to was our mutual friend, was actually Brook, though. Dr. Brook here texting back and forth on Facebook Messenger. So, but yeah, that's how the journey started, and we went through the entire program together. We had a lot of overlap at one point, especially I tried to convince you to do Nuka as well.
So I want you to get into that story. So your mom got helped by a chiropractor from an accident that she had been in. Where did Nuka come in, and can you explain a little bit what Nuka is for people who do not understand?
So Nuka, when I moved to Life West in San Francisco, I wanted to get more techniques. I wanted to learn more about like all these different things that we call like more tools in our toolbox. And what it sort of ended up happening is I tested so many different things that I wanted to push myself in and find how I best wanted to help patients. And then I sort of stumbled on this thing called NUCCA, or upper cervical chiropractic, and which is focusing on the top region of the spine, that connection between the skull and the neck, as like right where the brain sort of meets the spinal cord.
So if you see this spine here, it's this bone right here.
That's called the atlas. And that's when I was like, this doesn't make sense. In my head, I was like, how does this one bone unwind the entire spine? How does it affect the physiology of the entire body? And they're still publishing research. There was some research out at the time, and I started to go down this rabbit hole of testing all these different techniques. So upper cervical chiropractic has about 6 or 7 major techniques that are just focused on that. So there's other techniques who will dabble in that area too, but these are just dedicated specialities. And then at this point, I found Nuka, and I was looking at something that has this objectivity where we take what's unique to Nuka is not only the low force, so there's no twisting, popping, or cracking. It's done in a sideline position where it's like I wouldn't say low force, it's gentle. So there's like a build-up of force, a sustained force that helps leverage the entire biomechanics of the body. And that comes from us taking these pre-X-rays. We're measuring down to 1/4 of a millimeter, 1/2 a degree. And that level of accuracy and specificity helps us impact the entire body. It doesn't matter if you have knee pain or low back pain. Very simply put, we trace it back up to the top part of the neck. Your body has this sort of neurological mapping and biomechanical mapping that Nuka has a really good way of evaluating to start to get these not just postural results, but physiological changes. And then we don't guess with your health. We take post X-rays after the first adjustment. And that was actually the sort of the nail in the coffin that solidified me doing Nuka. Is like, now I'm not just moving a bone. We're checking all the neurology. We're going to take a post X-ray. We're going to fine tune it like a car. I'm like, okay, are the numbers where we need it to be? And if so, let's continue forward with care. So it has that it has that flexibility, but it also has a very objective like specificity to it as well. And that's what I think I just fell in love with Nuka, and how it can help patients.
What quarter were you in when that happened?
I think I was in my third quarter.
Third quarter?
Yeah, it was in December of 2016.
Yeah.
So
very cool.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I'm like, within 9 months, I had already 6 to 9 months. I'd already decided, instead of doing the 10 different things that I wanted to do, I'm like, I came to learn everything, and I did. I still tried everything else while I was going through this journey, but I ended up graduating just doing this one thing.
Yeah, it's interesting how life happens that way. Sometimes we look back and we go, how did we get here? And we retrace. You talked about, retracing some of the steps, or retracing everything back up to the one bone, in the top, whether it be knee pain or low back. And not even just looking at the spine and the body, but like really overall picture of how our lives kind of move through these ebbs and flows and kind of these pathways that we may not understand some of the steps along the way, but when we look backwards, we're like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe, 9 years old, your mom getting in the car accident led you on this whole entire trajectory of leaving the UK, coming to California, now being in Southern California.
Yeah, I've definitely slowly moved.
I mean, they're
can't go any further south in California.
Right? I mean, well, I guess you could a little bit, like 45 minutes south.
45.
But it's really fascinating when you really start to look at your life and you look at all of the little steps and stones that you've made of, like, had to step over or crawl or do all these different things to get through to the other side, or to get through, challenges and tough points in your life. With that being said, how are we? Can you explain to people, I guess, like a little bit of how we are working together, like phase 1, phase 2, and then I can go into that more as well.
Yeah, awesome. So, in just as you said, like, our body is this series of events.
Totally.
And our, not just the decisions we make to get to where we are, but I say this to our patients, like, it may have taken you 30 or 40 years for your body to get to where it is, but it's not going to take that 30 or 40 years for it to get healthy. But it's going to take some time. And like that canvas, there's layers of paint, there's things that we have to work through, and understand how all these compensations have created this misalignment at the top of the spine that's not just affecting it's not just a bone out of place, it's impacting the brain stem and the spinal cord. And once we start to understand how this bone has moved in 3D space, we can start to track, okay, well, let's do a neurological foundation workup, which is bringing us into this phase 1 and phase 2 that Dr. Brook mentioned. And this is like a protocol that we've created in our office, really like putting Nuka at the foundation in the center of our office here, because that's what we specialize in, where once we get someone to hold their alignment, we adjust them over a period of 90 days, because it takes about that much time for the neurology and the structures to change. I always say, it's like, my goal is to not see you again. Yeah. If I could give you one adjustment, let's like go on, right? Yep. And we don't live in this bubble. We're not bubble wrapped. As the seasons change, so does our body. And this is when working with Dr. Brook into phase 2 comes really into play for the patients here in our office. Once you start to really hold your alignment around the 8 to 10 week mark, when people are coming in about once a month, close to, or every 2 to 3 weeks, and we keep pushing them to the point where they're coming in once every 3 months because they're doing so well. During that entire 8 week to 6 month period is like the hardest period. It's like that, getting that next 10-15% to get to 100 and above is where you stand out so well. We do such as good, like I said, this neurological foundation work, and then we enter into phase 2, and Dr. Brook will do a full functional medicine DSA workup on our patients, understand that yes, we've changed now the neurology and the physiology of the body. So sometimes what we've noticed is things may show up if they had no Nuka care, and it might be quite a bit different or not as different after Nuka care. So there's less work for you to do in one area, and then like the deeper stuff is easier for you to reach because we've done some of that work here.
Right. The way that I talk about it too with patients is kind of like, if you think about like clouds or fog over the city, you know, you kind of have to get through all of that fog to be able to kind of see the city or to see what's going on underneath. And so when you're talking about phase 1 with the neurological, the NUCCA foundation, it's almost as if you've helped move some of those clouds out of the picture so that I can get deeper into what's going on with our body. And for those of you who are listening, maybe watching on YouTube right now, and don't know what DSA is, I just wanted to give a brief overview. So dynamic system analysis, DSA for short, is a body of work essentially that acts as a interpreter for the body. So our bodies are constantly communicating with other organs inside, right? Like inside of us right now, as you and I sit here, cells are communicating to other cells, organs are making enzymes, they're breaking down, they're building up, they're doing all this work, digesting our food, nervous system is firing as I speak these words. So all of this stuff is happening, and we have never been really truly taught on like how to listen or how to engage with the language that's going on inside of us. Dynamic system analysis, created by Dr. Keith Roberts, is a way of pulling that information or being able to communicate with the body and going, hey, what's wrong? Where do you need help? Where can I assist you? So this is where I tell people, and I draw the line in the sand when it comes to functional medicine. Yes, I believe I'm a functional medicine practitioner, but I also have a different lens and a different viewpoint, because from a functional medicine standpoint, they have you, draw all this blood work, get all these labs done, you're doing everything. And they're looking at every single gap that they see on that blood work, and they say, here you go. And you end up with 15 to 20 different supplements, taking all these things, rubbing here, drinking this drink every 30 minutes, doing whatever it is, this intense protocol to try to get well, when in reality, I take labs, I look at labs, I do these kind of things, but I'm also then putting it through the DSA testing protocol and go, okay, well, all of this is going on. Where do you as the body need help? And so with that, then I'm able to say, okay, this is the bigger priority. Once we address and assist the body with this priority, it will fill in all the gaps itself. Like the body is so intelligent, so adaptable, its ability to self-correct and heal when given the right tools to do so, it's so fascinating. So functional medicine, yes, taking it through the DSA lens is the whole extra added piece that really gets people like lasting results in very little time, and not all this wasted money on supplements that A, their body doesn't want, their body is clearly saying no to, and two, things that they don't actually physically need.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why choosing to work with you again, like, yes, we've known each other for years, but prior to working with yourself, we used to utilize other functional medicine practitioners, and we've been through quite a few, and it's like it's like one, entrusting your patients with another doctor, like where it's like they're not going to undo the work that you've done, and they're not going to overload, because there's so much, like you're saying, like we've gone through with patients come back and like they're spending thousands of dollars on all these supplements to fill all these gaps, and then they're not necessarily needing to take them all, because it's like all you've done is drawn blood work and looked at the sample of that one moment in time. Whereas the beauty about DSA, and we've noticed with our patients, is it is dynamic. That's that dynamic system analysis, allowing as the patients go through their ebbs and flows. Yes, Nuka will bring them to this point, and that's a really good baseline for you. And then taking them on that journey, because it's a lot of give and take. And yes, it's created such a good atmosphere and results with our patients.
Definitely.
So very grateful for that.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. The body is very dynamic, like Dr. V said, it's not having the rigidness of saying, okay, well, this is the labs, this is where you were when you took the labs 2 weeks ago or 6 months ago or whenever they happen, but looking at, okay, well, how did things shift? How did things change? And so, I mean, I think that that's really cool because that's how we get to kind of engage with the patients and kind of, you know, the ebb and flow. And it's beautiful. I think that it's definitely been working out very well for the patients as a whole, individually as a group, you know. But thank you. I really appreciate that. I know I am very honored that you allow me to work with your patients. So.
No, and the same back is just like the fact that the beauty about Nuka, and I also now know with DSA, is that it slots so well into people's health team.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing to work with you, and definitely been an honor, because I've learned a lot, and it's definitely impacted how we look at patients and how we essentially pre-test them.
Right.
Before, like whether someone needs DSA sooner rather than later.
Right.
And before it was like very rigid in when we would introduce this into different patients. So it's a great integrative way to slot into anyone's health team.
Yeah.
Which is what we do with the professional athletes too in our office.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Talk about that a little bit in terms of how you're working, because I know for you a big passion of yours is golf.
Yes.
And so you have, for those of you who may have never been in Dr. V's office, he's got an entire golf simulator, you know, to, what is it, like analyze the swing and the speed and all these things. I don't know very much about golf, if you can't tell, but he's very passionate about it, and he's very passionate about athletes, concussions, all of those things that professional athletes experience that maybe just us common folk, me, don't necessarily. Like, I mean, it would be tough for me to get a concussion unless I get in like a car accident or something, versus like getting hit by a flying golf ball or
well, I'm not actually seeing anyone with concussions from being hit in the head with a golf ball.
I know the likelihood.
Well, the likelihood is like a bit more likely than getting struck by lightning on a golf course, but it's still like it's one of those things.
Right.
So the beauty about Nuka is, like, most of our office, we see headaches, migraines, and hormonal imbalances. And then a lot of the TBI, so traumatic brain injuries, and one of the biggest portion of that is concussions.
Yeah.
So from an athlete's perspective, yes, they're more likely to get a concussion, and it creates a lasting impact on the body past the 3 to 6 months, and even the 4 to 6 weeks initially.
Right.
People just go through it and they're like, oh, it's over with. But the recovery process may take even longer if those initial 3 months were not taken care of properly.
Right, absolutely.
So from that perspective, yes, we do a lot of the getting them back into the game and rehabbing injuries in that sense. What we do here in the office, and why we have that golf simulator, other than a giant toy in my office, when I'm not seeing patients, in between I'm like trying to hit golf balls, is we're looking at the data. We're trying to see how we can impact the human performance.
Yeah.
So in particular with golfers, that's my passion. We've noticed even like the big number that everyone likes to talk about is more distance, hit the ball further off the tee, and we're starting to notice that over a period of 6 weeks and only 2 adjustments, there's quite a big increase in yardage that people are hitting with the golf ball. And on the other side of it, with some of the basketballers and sprinters, their push-off times for when they're running, how high they can jump. So it's essentially taking the limiter off of your body, understanding how your brain can utilize every cell and communicate to it.
It's amazing.
So, and we say that to our regular patients as well as our athletes. It's like, simply put, I'm going to help connect your brain to your body. So the work that we do with the performance program is taking a much more in-depth dive. Is, yes, you now have no symptoms, but how do we essentially hack your brain to start talking and communicating and adapting everything you're doing? So we're not going to change how you swing. It may change how you swing, or in your ability to swing the club better, or throw the ball, and so on and so forth. But it's like, we don't do the coaching on that side. That's why we slot so well into teams. It's essentially allowing you to increase your potential without having to go to the gym for a year and get the same results. But now just imagine you're going to the gym, you're getting the right coaching, and now you have Nuka, which is making sure you're healing quicker, you're in alignment, so that your body has this innate ability to start utilizing everything that it has.
Right.
Because like I remember when everyone said that you can't a mile cannot be run in 4 minutes.
Right.
And then
Roger Bannister.
and then one person ran the 4-minute mile. And then what happened after that? All of a sudden, everyone started running sub 4-minute miles.
Yep.
So a lot of that also impacts from the mindset shift in how we train. So what we do with Nuka is now starting to understand how maybe these old injuries have created these neurological, mental traumas that manifest as physical pathways.
Absolutely.
So it's breaking those physical pathways so that even though you've recovered, now you don't essentially turn your body off, what we call turn your body off, when you stand over the golf ball, because your body all of a sudden had a trigger that brought you back to an old injury, and you're like, well, my practice swing was good. My practice was so good when I was throwing the ball.
Right.
What happened there?
Right.
And what we so often blame, I'm like, well, I just need to fine tune my swing or my game.
Yeah.
And it's understanding, well, maybe there's something else underlying that created essentially a negative feedback loop. So when you're in the game, it turns off.
Absolutely. And this is something I want to add this little piece in there too, because one of the pieces that I practice is something called injury recall technique. And injury recall technique is essentially hitting Control-Alt-Delete on a computer that is running really slow and closing out the program that is like making your computer freeze, allowing the computer to continue to function. Boom, boom, boom. So many people don't understand that just because the bruise or the cut or the bleed or the scab all went away, it doesn't mean that the body is completely healed, right? Like you're talking about this with concussions, with things like the brain going, oh my God, I remember when the knee got hurt, so I'm going to stand a certain way because I don't think that I could put all my weight on that. Because it still has that injury feedback loop going on. And so you got to clear old injuries out of the brain, because the body tissue may be healed, but the brain loop is still there. And if you don't clear the injury, it's like you can't express full healing in the same way that you would, if you, your computer's not going to function well if the program there is like, eating up all the memory, or like causing it to like just be bogged down.
Yes.
You need to take all the stressors out of the picture.
Exactly. And simply put, like, just for a really easy example, it's like when you're on crutches, you break your foot, you're on crutches for 6 weeks. So that's muscle memory.
Yes.
And muscle memory is, again, like one of the real base level things that we look at, but it's so much more than that. But if we just look at muscle memory, I'm like, well, now you're not on crutches, but your body's just been used to walking on crutches for 6 weeks.
Totally.
And so you've healed and you don't feel any issues, but now all of a sudden you have this extra tendency to keep re-injuring certain patterns and certain issues, and like it's a compensation. So we talk about compensation so much in our office. And it goes everything from muscle memory to, it's like you can't really call it brain memory, but we always say, like, what happened when you went through a certain accident?
Right.
In one of our patients, like they were going through a divorce at that time.
Yeah.
That divorce now latches onto knee injuries. Well, we've cleared out all the other stuff neurologically and physically, and we're doing some of these tests. Okay, well now we need to refer you to like a holistic therapist to say, you're never gonna really truly go through this full injury unless the psychological trauma that you didn't know that you were going through is attached somehow in certain regions of these bodies. And this is what we say, like the physical manifestations of these mental traumas.
Yeah.
So it can be the accident itself, or it could be what was going on during that accident, or during that stressor in your life. So
or the stressor in your life making you more prone to physical accidents, right? Like tripping over a sidewalk, because you've got all this crazy psychological stuff happening in your brain.
And so there's a lot of going back and forth. So when we utilize the NUCCA protocol in the office, and that's all we do here so that we can be the best at what we do here, but it's understanding is when to adjust, when not to adjust, what do patients need, that there's more value in being in alignment than getting the adjustment. But it's like, again, muscle memory. We have to train the body, understand and make sure the ligaments and blood vessels and the neurology is where it's supposed to be in order for it to start that healing process.
And that's exactly where I'm at as well, knowing when and knowing when not to, and it's having for me, it's having the conversation with the body. The way that you and I are communicating, I'm having a conversation with you. With DSA, when I'm talking to your body and having a conversation with it, and it's telling me like, hey, these are the things going on, but hey, I want you to start with the liver. Like, hey, my liver needs some help. I can fix all the other things, just help the liver. And we'll do those protocols or whatever it is, you know, whatever shows up. But for me, it's like sometimes, you know, when I do adjust patients in office, like, you know, I don't associate as a NUCCA chiropractor. I do see a lot of value in NUCCA. Love NUCCA. You were my first NUCCA adjustment ever.
I was.
In chiropractic school. And I have a foundational understanding of NUCCA. I went to the NUCCA conference with you. Did a lot of the different NUCCA clubs on campus. So I know the NUCCA protocol to some extent, not enough to practice. That's why I refer my patients who need NUCCA chiropractic to Dr. V, or need, you know, upper cervical. But sometimes when I am adjusting patients, it's like if I'm adjusting the pelvis, that adjustment may show up like step 10 down the road, not step 1. And so this is him and I get in a lot of conversations. For those of you not in the chiropractic space, just know that there are a lot of different techniques, like he mentioned. And sometimes it can be like a technique war, right? Like, oh, well, I'm better because I practice, like, you know, and people really kind of getting all the ego involved instead of the best, like, what is in the best interest of this patient, 100%, right?
It's very patient-centered.
Totally. And what you and I are doing is very patient-centered. It's like looking at them like, okay, you know, is it about having structurally every correct curve in the spine, or is it about getting well, like truly well, you know, because some chiropractors get really focused on, well, you have all the curves going on and all the angles and the degrees are right, but the patient still feels like crap. Like that's no way to live your life. I'm on a tangent. I'm going to come back. But anyway, like what I wanted to say is just how, you know, you have to know like when the body is ready to receive
100%.
The adjustment, you know, and not just with our own viewpoint of what we think things should be, and we're just kind of throwing in an adjustment. Like love that NUCCA is so low force, very gentle, because you're not throwing massive impact.
We're not forcing the body
into the brain.
Yeah.
Exactly. But there's so much of that out there where it's just like, you know, how many chiropractic seminars have you been to, and it becomes like show, like this big old, like, you know, burly dude is like with the guy on the table, crack, 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 like all over the place, and then like there's crowds of people, and then they're laying down, and it's like, is that serving the patient? Like, is that serving the person? You know, is it just like, chiropractic is so life-changing, and some of it has become so showy that, you know, it's like, it's hard to associate, but in the same sense, you want people to see a different version of what chiropractic
100%.
is.
And as with anything, it's not that we're anti-medicine or medication. There's a time and a place for that.
Right.
There's also a time and a place to utilize certain techniques, and why we time certain things here with the protocols and the phases, and understanding maybe there's too much input into a body, and not necessarily getting adjusted every week. Like, I get checked every week. One of the biggest things, people are like, oh, so how often do you get adjusted? Well, I get checked every 2 weeks now.
Okay, but checked versus adjusted, can you explain that?
So in the one thing I can always say is, your chiropractor, and this is a personal opinion, you shouldn't always need to be adjusted, right? If your body's in alignment, it's healing, you should be functioning at 100%. Like, that's the goal. Yes, we go through knocks and bumps and stuff, and maybe some people need to be adjusted more frequently, but you should be able to hold your adjustments, your alignment, to a certain degree. So the longest I've ever held mine is 15 weeks. I actually know this. This was when I was in school, and I laugh because that was probably when I was the most stressed. I'm still very stressed right now. But different types of stress. I got checked every week, periodically. But it's not necessarily getting adjusted. So it's like when you go to the dentist, you go and get your teeth checked, make sure everything's in the right place, and however anything else is going on. And not necessarily are you getting a teeth removed. Like you don't want to hear you have a cavity and you need to get a tooth pulled,
Right.
or some sort of operation or surgery on that. And it's similar to in the chiropractic space and how what we work in our offices. You don't necessarily want to be adjusted. I tell my patients, like, getting adjusted here means that you're not in alignment. And if you're not in alignment, your body's not healing to its best ability. So if you're in alignment, you're healing, let's check you, let's make sure. Do we need to adjust you? Then we will. And then there's that whole NUCCA protocol comes in, and that's part of the NUCCA protocol. The other half would be the NUCCA adjustment, and why you mentioned it's low force. It's really working with the neurology as well as the structure. It's not forcing the body. Like,
Right.
it's such a happy side effect. I joke. And people are like, oh, so will I get my curve back in my neck? And I'm like, yeah, actually a happy side effect is I'm not going to give you any exercises, but I'm going to show you this now. I'm going to measure it. I'm going to show you objectively in 6 weeks, and then in 7 weeks, and then in 90 days at the end, that curve will come back. And I lifted my head like that because I've noticed sometimes people will change the positioning on the x-rays and stuff to show that they've got results. And one of the beauty about NUCCA is it's an organization itself. It's a non-profit. So we have our standards and certifications committee. We have the Upper Cervical Research Foundation, which is tasked to produce and consistently back with evidence NUCCA research in different clinical settings and otherwise, and get them into peer-reviewed journals. So the standards for positioning, when we're talking about how precise and accurate we are, is making sure that there's an apples-to-apples comparison. So, like, how do you know you truly got healthy? But if you've then there's been doctors out there, not just chiropractors and medical doctors, people like, oh yeah, like, you're healthy. And they're showing you an image of I'm exaggerating, like, there was an image of a foot and now it's like the image of of a hand. I'm like, yeah, see how it's better? I'm like, they're two different things. So it's understanding, like, when we position you, we're positioning you at the same place in the same way every single time. So NUCCA has those measures and those tools to make sure that we're not influencing the body to fake results, essentially. So
it's so beautiful, and just to kind of touch back on the whole, really not forcing things into the body. I use this analogy a lot and I love it, and I think people can really grasp and understand it. But really, unless you have a Tesla or another electric vehicle, you know what it is like when you roll up to the gas station and you're at the pump and it says right there, signs all over, do not overfill. Do not overfill. It's not for the sake of the gas station not wanting you to fill your tank past the point of which it can fill up so that you can get gas, cheaper that day versus, the rising gas prices that are happening every 2 days. It feels like they go higher and higher. It's like they don't say that so that you just, have this excess in your gas tank. They say it, because it's horrible for your vehicle. And then not only does it damage your vehicle, but it damages their property also. So they're looking out for you and for them. And in the sense with NUCCA and DSA and the partnership that, NUCCA or that Dr. V and I have, is that premise. Do not overfill. Do not overdo it. It's not about coming into the office. My same protocol. It's not coming into the office 3 times a week. It's not, it's like we're checking and we're shifting and we're changing and we're making updates as we go, as we move through the protocol. And, people working with me, a lot of your patients that work with me are telehealth patients. So I work with them remotely on Zoom. And, we have a whole system and checkpoints. But, a lot of times, many times they show up very clear. And if they don't, I say, hey, go continue your care plan with Dr. Soham and Dr. V. And so it's like knowing exactly what the body needs, when it needs it, and not overfilling that tank, that very gentle approach. So it's so beautiful. Like, I hope that you guys feel that excitement and that understanding. And I hope that this really encourages you to seek out a NUCCA chiropractor in your area. If you are in the San Diego area, Dr. Vivek Soham is here.
Yeah. We take care of patients as far as from Pasadena, Big
Yeah.
Bend, Palm Springs.
Yeah.
So
Southern California,
so
I guess you
at
could
this
say.
point, we have
yeah.
our furthest patient drives 103 miles one way.
Right?
So it's like
That's amazing.
I'm obviously going to say, no matter where you are, come and see us.
Absolutely.
But I would love to have you in the office and obviously collaborate when necessary with yourself and vice versa. It's like it is a very good, like I said, that ebb and flow and that dynamic, and it's really creating independence for our patients. That's one of the biggest things I stress in our office is you don't need to rely on myself.
Right.
You don't need to rely on us and what we do here at NUCCA. It should help you gain independence back.
Absolutely. In a inexpensive, over and over and over, reoccurring charge after reoccurring charge, no answers, no direction, so anyways, but awesome, guys. Well, Dr. V, how can people get in touch with you as we close up for today?
Go ahead and visit our website, nimbusbrainspine.com. Our office is...
I'll put that in the links below also. So
our office is called Nimbus Brain and Spine. You can either give us a call or schedule a free consultation through our website. We're happy to help you, at least give you the answers, to point you in the right direction, whether it's in our office or not. That's why the consultations are free. And then I'll also leave our support email, support@nimbusbrainspine.com. If you have any questions or queries, go ahead and shoot us that email. Either myself or my team will get to you, so that, again, just pointing you in the right direction.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this for me.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you being on the podcast, and really appreciate you as a friend, as a colleague, and love how we're changing the world together. So
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Body Talks podcast with me, Dr. Brook Sheehan, where you're learning to pay close attention to the whispers your body is speaking so you can live a life fully expressed physically, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally without spending time and money on healthy items that aren't right for you. You're uniquely made, and your healthcare needs should reflect that. To learn more or how you can work with me, visit drbrooksheehan.com, that's Brook without an E, and discover your answers today.